Hello and welcome to Writing Today. In this episode, I'll be giving you 5 more tips for writing a mystery novel. I have talked about writing a mystery novel before, and I'll leave a link to the previous video in case you want to check that out. As always, you can find this article on my website, thepensleuth.com, and if you're interested in premium educational content to help you write your novel, I recommend checking out my writer's workshop as well. There's also a link to a free course in case you want to check out my teaching methods before you partake in the writer's workshop. With that said, let's get straight into the very first tip for writing a mystery novel. Number 1 on this list is to create intrigue to raise questions. The core nature of a great detective is curiosity. When the detective notices something odd, something out of place, questions begin to form in their mind, and they want answers. Sometimes they get their answers by asking others. Other times they use their brilliance and reasoning to find their answer. Many times their curiosity gets them into danger. The reader works the same way. A good mystery novel will create intrigue. You can arouse a reader's curiosity the same way you can with the main character. Present them with something out of place. Subtly focus on it and let the reader start to make assumptions. While the gears in their head start turning, they unconsciously flip pages to seek an answer. A tactic of many authors is to grab the reader with an exciting opening, one that makes them feel more emotion, be it excitement or horror. As a mystery novelist, your goal is intrigue. You do this by presenting a clue. For example, the white corner of a note stuck out from a book on the table. You can also create interest by presenting an oddity. For example, the bullet came from the victim's gun, but the gun showed no sign of being fired. You can even use a conclusion that you can reverse engineer. For example, it was the girl from the flower shop who stole it. All these lines are interesting to open with because you're not presented with the whole story. What you are presented with is a curious highlight that requires further explanation, and it is structured in such a way that the explanation is of interest to the reader. And these lines are nothing unique. These are pretty cliché when it comes to the mystery genre, but these are the lines that readers expect when they pick up a mystery novel. And because they expect it, their mind immediately starts working when they are presented with this line. This isn't so much as if they're presented with a serious cliché, one that they've read so many times before. This is just a method that they know quite well, and it's a method that is often employed by the best of mystery writers. What's important to note is that these lines are a novelty. They create temporary interest, but it's this temporary interest that will keep them turning pages a while longer, as they slowly become more attached to the plot and the characters. Tip number 2 is to be misleading, but also logical. I have talked about red herrings and great methods for misleading a reader in my previous video, which you can find a link to in the description. But I didn't emphasize the importance of being logical. Logic is sometimes misleading. Logic helps you find answers to questions, but if you don't have enough information, that logic can be turned upside down. That is the brilliance of misleading the reader. You have them believing not only in what their heart tells them, but what their mind tells them as well. Now, it is easy to distract someone, to point at something else and say that's important. Yet a smart reader will see through it at any time. A smart reader understands when details are unimportant, which is why you need to use their logic against them. It all comes down to focusing on the truth you know and assuming the reader is onto you. You can circumnavigate the reader's expectations by creating 2 threads of thought. One thread is the primary reason that the characters follow and is presented in your novel. The second thread is the underlying reason that you only hint at, knowing that the reader will hold onto that thread tight. As the story progresses one way, the reader will assume the primary thread to be false and the secondary to be true. That's when you reveal what is known as the third thread, your actual mystery, in the final act. The second method for misleading your reader on a path that seems logical is a little less complicated but can be just as effective. Create a sense of constant confusion. Introduce facts that go against what the reader assumes. Most readers will believe they had it wrong and try to come up with a new theory at the back of their mind, or just settle into the story and see what happens. Later, you can reveal that the reader had it right the first time, or perhaps the answer was in plain sight, but some false facts were presented to contradict it. There are so many ways you can deceive the reader, but if you don't use logic to back it up, then that deception tends to fall through. And the best way to find a logical path is to make assumptions yourself. If you're presented with such information, limited as it may be, what assumptions would you make? So looking at this information that you present, what paths can you create and reinforce for the reader to go down, only to be surprised later on? As an added tip, the reader will rarely trust the main character's theory, so you can use that bit of information to your advantage. Tip number 3 is to add pressure by raising the stakes in your mystery novel. Mystery novels aren't slow all the time. There is a suspense to them that makes solving the mystery so captivating. In detective stories, the stakes are usually the lives that are on the line. In most mysteries, the main character is under threat, or those that the character cares about. When people's lives are at stake, the pressure is very high. It's a factor that intimidates a lot of civilian mystery solvers, as they don't want to be involved in something so dangerous if they can avoid it. It's a feeling made more terrifying when the antagonist appears to know more than the main character. Another way to add pressure is to introduce a time constraint, but this will also increase the pacing of your story, so use it wisely. The main character has to solve the mystery before the antagonist strikes again, be it through claiming another victim or pulling off a devastating heist. If the antagonist strikes only once a month, the pressure isn't that high, but if they strike every 3 days, it feels more like a chase. The clues are fresh, so the main character is following tracks, piecing together the antagonist's motives and methods at a fast pace. And the pressure will consistently remain high. The characters can feel it, and so can the reader. So if you feel that your mystery is not captivating enough, it simply means that the stakes are too low to gain reader interest, to really add to the urgency of this mystery. So there are several methods that one can use to raise the stakes, and I've talked about 2 already, but it all comes down to the characters losing something and the antagonist gaining something. So if you want to crank up the intensity of your mystery, introduce more threats, more danger, and perhaps add a time constraint if you feel that a higher pacing might help as well. And of course the reverse applies. If you feel that your mystery novel is too tense and you want to alleviate the stress and pressure a bit more, then it's simply about removing these factors, about decreasing the danger and giving your mystery solver more time to do their work. Tip number 4 is to emphasize the reveal. Your reveal is important. It's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. If you introduce your reveal without proper build-up, it comes off as more comedic than brilliant. So in order to emphasize the reveal, you have to underline its significance. Why is the reveal so important? What effect does it have on the story and the characters? If you are revealing the antagonist, is that character important to the main character or the mystery? Another factor is the amount of time one dedicates to the reveal and the scenes that come after. Most mysteries don't end with the reveal of the antagonist or the answers to those questions. The story becomes a little more straightforward, that much is true, but now it isn't carried by mystery, it is carried by the characters. How do your characters react to this reveal, and how do they go about solving this issue? Does the antagonist fight back? Do they escape? Is it a thrilling chase that leads to a suspenseful confrontation and a dark hideout? Or does it become an emotional back and forth if the main character has such a connection to the antagonist? Even Scooby-Doo takes the time at the end of each episode to explain the planning of the antagonist and why they did it. And then afterwards, you always see them escorted away by the police. But in a real-life mystery, that's not how it goes. the antagonist usually does fight back, and then there is some loose ends that need to be tied off. So don't end your story abruptly, and don't introduce the reveal without the proper build-up. What you want to do is make it that much more satisfying when the main character solves the mystery, when the antagonist reveals themselves, if that's the kind of antagonist that you have. And you also want to answer any leftover questions that the reader might have. Tip number 5 is to trick someone you know. It always helps to have someone else read your book, especially if you know that person to be pretty smart when it comes to solving mysteries. Whether it be a friend or family member, ask for their opinion after each chapter where they believe the story is going. Their theories and opinions will not only tell you the quality of your chapters, but they will also tell you if your methods in misleading them are working or not. After all, if your reader is able to figure out the mystery early in the novel, that means you gave too much information away. And as always, it does help to get a second opinion, no matter what genre. But when it comes to the mystery genre, and it's all about subverting the reader's expectations, not in a comedic sense, but in a mysterious way, then it is very important to get someone else's thoughts on your plot. Because you, as the author, know already every detail in what is important and what is not. So it's easy for you to see through that deception, and you can't properly gauge if your methods in misleading the reader are that effective or not. As I said what feels like over a year ago, I got into writing because of the mystery genre. I particularly like characters who are intelligent and and in a setting where there is some danger lurking in the shadows, and they will need to solve some puzzles to figure out what that danger is and how to defeat it. In particular, I like the cliché detective in a very noir setting. And I like this character and setting because the main character tends to be a lot more cynical, and in a city, cynicism tends to be well-founded. There are so many things going on, everything's a buzz, and so when it comes to solving a mystery and finding clues, it becomes a lot more difficult and a lot more dangerous. And yes, this cliché detective that smokes cigarettes, wears trench coats, and spews metaphors has been overdone in the mystery genre. But it still provides some sort of comfort to me as a reader. I enjoy reading that kind of character and story, even if it doesn't have that same sort of gripping nature that a lot of other mystery novels do today. I'd also like to hear your thoughts on the mystery genre and what kind of feeling you want to create in your story. I do hope that you found these 5 tips useful for writing your story as well, and if you have any questions, be sure to let me know in the comments as well. And if you're a beginner writer looking to get a head start into the writing world, getting advice, professional guidance in writing a novel, then I recommend you check out my writer's workshop. There's more information on that in the link below. And if you want to check out my teaching methods before you consider joining my writer's workshop, there's a link to a free course in the description as well. Thank you for watching, and as always, good day, good night, and happy writing.